The scream didn't sound human. It tore through the warm, cinnamon-scented air of the Sunrise Cafe so sharply that forks froze mid-air and every conversation collapsed into silence. "Don't touch him!" The shout came from the far corner where a tall man in a charcoal suit, one that cost more than most cars parked outside, stood rigid, his face drained of blood. This was Graham Alden, the billionaire tech mogul whose fortune, influence, and icy composure had become local legend. People said nothing rattled him, nothing moved him, nothing reached him. But right now, panic was ripping through every inch of him. Because in front of him, a black waitress with natural curls pulled into a bun was cradling his son, his fragile, trembling 7-year-old Eli Alden, whose body was convulsing in a violent atonic seizure. Her name was Nia Carter, 28 years old, server of coffees by necessity, caregiver by instinct, former occupational therapy student by heartbreak. And as she knelt, lowering Eli gently to the floor, the entire cafe felt as though it was watching a bomb being defused. "Ma'am, step away," one of Graham's 3 bodyguards barked, advancing like a wall of muscle and urgency. But Nia didn't flinch. "He's choking on his own tongue. Move back." Now, though her voice was steady, her pulse hammered at her neck. Her hands, broad from years of lifting trays, soft from years of caring for her younger brother, held the boy's head firmly as she positioned him on his side. Eyes rolled, limbs shook, customers murmured. Graham halted mid-stride, because she knew what she was doing, because she wasn't panicking, because she was touching his son, not with fear, but with competence. "Don't crowd him," Nia ordered, not looking up. Her tone was so commanding that even the guards hesitated. Seconds passed, then 30, then 60. Slowly, miraculously, the storm inside Eli's body calmed. His breathing steadied. His eyes opened, wide, frightened, searching, and then something happened so strange that several cafe patrons gasped audibly. Eli, who hadn't allowed anyone but his father or his therapist to touch him in years, lifted a trembling hand and rested it against Nia's cheek. Graham's knees nearly gave out. It was a gesture so tender, so trusting, so impossible that even the bodyguards looked shaken. Nia swallowed hard. A single tear escaped her eye, not from fear or pity, but from memory. Her younger brother, Marcus, used to do the same thing when he was scared. Before she lost him, before the state took him, before poverty forced her to choose survival over school. And in that moment, the billionaire, the waitress, and the fragile little boy formed a connection none of them understood yet, but all of them felt. What Nia didn't know was that this moment would tear open secrets larger than all 3 of them. And what Graham didn't know was that this woman, this stranger he had just shouted at, was about to unravel the lie he'd built his empire upon. 3 days later, Nia found herself standing before tall iron gates that looked more like they guarded a foreign embassy than a home. The Alden estate, a fortress of glass, stone, and money. A place she never imagined she would step foot in. But after the incident at the cafe, a crisp envelope had arrived with her name on it, requesting she attend a meeting regarding Eli Alden. There was no signature, just the Alden crest. The housekeeper who escorted her, a stern woman named Mrs. Leeson, eyed her with suspicion. "Follow me. Don't wander. Don't touch anything." They said this mansion had cost $70 million to build. They said no one got within 100 feet of the place without clearance. They said Graham Alden trusted no one, except, somehow, his son had touched her, a truth she still struggled to process. Nia clutched her bag, a worn-out canvas tote containing her wallet, her incomplete OT school transcript, and a single photograph of Marcus with his bright smile and crooked glasses. She reminded herself to breathe. Inside the office, Graham sat behind a minimalist desk, staring out at the private lake behind the estate. "Ms. Carter," he said without rising, "thank you for coming. His voice was softer than it had been at the cafe. More human, somehow. "You saved my son," he added. She shook her head. "I didn't save him. I just—" "You did," he interrupted. "And after that day, he drew this." He slid a sheet of paper toward her. A child's drawing. Two figures standing beside each other. One tall, one small. No smiles, no detailed features, but unmistakably together. Nia's throat tightened. "You don't understand," Graham continued. "Eli has never drawn a person. Not once. Not in 7 years. Not in thousands of therapy sessions." Before she could respond, the door slammed open. A striking, impeccably dressed woman swept in like a gust of expensive perfume. Cassandra Alden, Graham's sister and Eli's aunt. "What is this?" she snapped. "You brought the waitress here? Graham, are you out of your mind? The custody board will have a field day if they find out." Nia rose instinctively, ready to defend herself. But Graham raised a hand. "Cass, sit down." "I will not," she snapped, eyes narrowing at Nia as though she were a stain on the carpet. "You don't understand what's at stake. We cannot let strangers near Eli. Especially—" "Finish that sentence," Nia said quietly. Cassandra's lips tightened. Graham exhaled sharply. "Enough. Nia is here because Eli responded to her in a way he never has to anyone. I want to hire her." Cassandra stared at him as though he'd announced he was selling the house to become a circus clown. "You're replacing his medical team with her." "Not replacing." His eyes locked onto Nia's, adding. She frowned. "I'm not licensed. I'm not even finished with school." "You know more about my son than half the specialists I've hired," Graham said. "Tell me, Ms. Carter, if you could continue your training, where would you be now?" She hesitated. "Graduated, working with kids like Eli, and my brother." The last part slipped out. Graham's brows lifted. Cassandra looked annoyed that the conversation was now emotional instead of strategic. "Your brother?" Graham asked. "Marcus," she whispered, fingers tightening around her bag. "Cerebral palsy. Same sensory issues. I left school when my parents died. I couldn't afford tuition, and the state placed him in a public care facility because I was working 3 jobs." Silence wrapped around the room. "How much does it cost to move him to a private treatment center?" Graham asked softly. Nia blinked. "Pardon, you heard me. I don't know. Too much." "How much?" he pressed again. "I said I don't know," she snapped. Her voice cracked. "I haven't even dared to ask." Graham leaned forward. "Work with Eli. 3 months. Full-time on my property. You'll continue your studies. And your brother will be moved to one of the best pediatric neurological centers in the country. At my expense." Cassandra slammed her purse onto the desk. "This is absurd. She's manipulating you." Nia's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for her." "This is not about you," Cassandra said coldly. "This is about a father frantically grasping for anything." "And what are you grasping for?" Nia shot back. "Control? Image? A boy's life is at stake. 2 boys, actually. A flash of something. Surprise? Respect?" Passed over Graham's face. He extended a hand. 3 months. After that, we reassess." Nia looked at his hand. She thought of Marcus. Alone. Fading. Afraid. She took the hand. "I accept." What none of them knew was that a small figure outside the doorway had heard every word. "Eli." And he clutched in his little hands a drawing he wasn't ready to show anyone yet. One with 3 figures. Because in his quiet, wordless way, he already knew Nia wasn't leaving. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 3 weeks later, the mansion was not a home. It was a museum of silence and money. But Nia had carved out a rhythm, learning Eli's cues, his triggers, his rare but precious moments of laughter. Graham watched them from afar. He tried to keep his distance. But sometimes he lingered in the hallway, pretending to read emails while his son allowed Nia to guide him through sensory exercises. It was the first time in years the child seemed safe. Loved. Seen. But safety is fragile. And just before dawn, the screams began. Nia jolted awake. She sprinted down the corridor, heart hammering. At Eli's door, she found 2 doctors, 1 nurse, and Cassandra blocking the entrance like a gatekeeper. He's had multiple seizures since 4 a.m., Dr. Torres explained hurriedly. We've increased his medication. What medication? Nia demanded. The doctor stiffened. This doesn't concern you. Every breath this child takes concerns me. Cassandra stepped forward. Graham isn't here. He has a critical shareholder meeting. You do not decide anything. From behind the doctors, Nia glimpsed Eli, curled, trembling, face twisted in agony. She shouldered past Cassandra. Don't touch him, one doctor barked. But Nia saw something none of them did. Stop everything, she said sharply. Dr. Torres frowned. Ms. Carter, this isn't a neurological seizure, she said, voice steady. It's a sensory reaction. That's absurd. She pulled back Eli's blanket. Tiny red welts dotted his arms, spreading like ink through water. Nia's breath caught. I know these, she whispered. Marcus has the same reaction. Synthetic polyester. Her head snapped up. Did you put him in new pajamas? The team exchanged glances. Cassandra scoffed. I did. What of it? They were medically approved for sensitive skin. No, Nia said. No, they weren't. That was when Graham appeared at the door, tie half-fastened, breathing hard. What's happening? Take them off, Nia ordered. No hesitation. Noah, her voice broke, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We're fixing it. The pajamas came off. The welts stopped spreading. His breathing eased. Minutes later, Nia sat on the floor beside him, humming softly, rubbing chamomile ointment gently across his blistered skin. Graham watched her as though seeing her for the first time. And Cassandra watched Graham, realizing, with a flicker of panic, that she was losing influence. Again, by early afternoon, Eli was stable, exhausted but safe. Nia, however, had not returned to her room to rest. She was researching, digging, unraveling, because something about that medication the doctors mentioned bothered her. A new medication? Not in his existing chart. Not FDA approved. Unlisted. So she found public documents, clinical trial records, and the newest acquisition under Alden Biodynamics. A pharmaceutical lab. One that manufactured exactly one drug. A drug mentioned in Eli's treatment log. A drug with no public release date, no approval, no safety data. A drug being tested on. Her heart sank. 57 unnamed minors with cerebral palsy. State institutionalized. No guardians. No voice. Her vision blurred. Marcus was in state care. Was he? She didn't want to imagine the answer. But she didn't need to. The documents confirmed it. And something inside her cracked. This was bigger than pajamas. Bigger than seizures. Bigger than anything she had prepared herself for. When Graham burst into the office hours later, panic in his eyes, she didn't look up. Eli is refusing all contact, he said breathlessly. The doctors can't get near him. He's ripping off sensors. Ms. Carter, Nia, I need you. Her fingers hovered over the screen, showing Marcus's medical ID number. Do you? She whispered. What? She stood. Take me to him. Eli was curled in the far corner of his room, shaking, whimpering, refusing to let anyone close. Except, when Nia knelt on the floor, 3 feet away, he lifted his eyes. Hey, little star, she whispered. Remember our drawings? He stilled. The doctors froze. Cassandra glared. Graham waited. You show me stars don't need 5 points, she continued softly. They can be different. Like you. Like Marcus. His breath caught. He knew that name. She stretched out her hand, not touching, only offering. Eli hesitated, then crawled into her arms. And every adult in that room felt something inside them collapse. Graham approached, voice trembling. Nia, what is going on? She looked up at him, tears burning behind her eyes. Tell him, she said to Eli. The boy pulled a medical tablet from beneath the bed. Scans. Notes. Lab codes. The experimental drug. Dad, Eli's voice was thin, strained. Did you hurt Marcus too? Graham went pale. Cassandra stepped back, as if the walls themselves were collapsing. Nia stood slowly, clutching Eli. The lab you bought, she said evenly. It tested Xenovax on institutionalized children. Children who couldn't consent. Children like Marcus. His face crumpled. I was trying to cure Eli, he whispered. No company would develop the drug. They said it was risky, no profit, so I bought the research. I didn't know they were. Yes, Cassandra cut in sharply. He did. Graham, don't pretend. He rounded on her. You knew. She lifted her chin. I knew enough. Enough to protect you. Protect me, he hissed. You protected the company. The money. They're the same thing. Nia stepped forward. No, they aren't. She handed Graham 3 files. Eli's records. The lab's clinical notes. Marcus's patient report. Graham's hands shook as he opened them. His face drained as he read. When he reached the photo of Marcus, thin, expression vacant, wrist marked with unexplained finger-sized bruises, his breath caught in his throat. What have I done? He whispered. Eli tugged his sleeve. Dad, he said softly, no more experiments. Graham collapsed into a chair. A billionaire crumbling under the weight of truth money couldn't shield him from. You're going to fix this, Nia said quietly. Not for me. Not for your empire. For the children you hurt. And the one you love. Graham lifted his eyes. There was no arrogance left. Only devastation. And a sliver of resolve. Yes, he whispered. I will. The next 48 hours were a storm. Federal investigators. Search warrants. Lawyers. Reporters surrounding the estate. Cassandra tried to flee the country. She was stopped at the airport. Graham did not hide. He held a press conference, live, worldwide. I authorized full investigation into Alden Biodynamics. All trials are suspended. All children affected will receive lifetime care and compensation. I am resigning from my role effective immediately. I believed I could buy a cure. Instead, I hurt the very children I wanted to save. I was wrong. The world exploded. Shock, outrage, sympathy, headlines everywhere. But the cameras didn't capture the quietest moment of them all. 2 days later, in a private treatment center far from the chaos, Eli sat beside a boy who looked almost like him. Marcus. Nia watched as their small hands touched, gently, curiously, like 2 birds discovering each other. Her chest ached with joy and grief and hope woven together. Behind her, Graham approached slowly. He's improving already, he whispered. Both of them are. Nia nodded. You kept your promise. I intend to keep all of them. He hesitated. Nia, I don't expect forgiveness. I know, but I am grateful for your fire, your courage, your refusal to look away. She turned to him. You listened. That matters. Silence settled between them. Not cold, not awkward, just human. The world watched history unfold. The Alden New Horizons Foundation opened, dedicated to ethical research and accessible treatments for children with cerebral palsy. Graham oversaw transparency and funding. Nia, degree completed, licensed, respected, became clinical director. She brought compassion where science faltered. She brought humanity where bureaucracy drowned it. On the foundation's report cover was a photo. Marcus and Eli, sitting side by side, smiling, holding tablets, drawing stars. And on the final page was a note signed by Graham. I built an empire believing power could solve everything. But power without empathy destroys. A waitress once showed me that the greatest miracles are not made in labs. They are made through human connection. Visitors to his new, humble office always noticed the framed drawing on the wall. 3 figures. A man, a small boy, a woman, holding hands. When asked what it meant, Graham simply replied, "They're not my reminders. They're my teachers." Months later, Nia returned to the Sunrise Café. The same sunlight, the same warm smell of bread. But everything felt different, because she wasn't alone. Eli held her left hand. Marcus held her right. And behind them, carrying the boys' backpacks and laughing under his breath, was Graham Alden. Not the billionaire, not the titan, just a father trying to do better. The waitress at the counter recognized Nia immediately. "Back again?" she asked warmly. Nia smiled. "Yes," she said, squeezing the boy's hands. "Back again. Because some stories don't end with climaxes. They end with beginnings."